Both Nadav and General Alexander have great influence on the world of cybersecurity, on state level and today on the industry level. The next guest also have cybersecurity is going to look like in the years to come in Israel and worldwide. So the session that we're going to have now, the session we're going to have now is going to be chaired by Dr. Eviatar Matania, Director General, Israel National Cyber Doctrine on the Prime Minister's Office. Eviatar, the stage is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, guests from abroad and Israeli friends. We had the opportunity to hear a very interesting session of cyber leaders all around the world. Kit Alexander, Gil Schwade, which I find is the global leader in cyber, and Nadav Tzafir, who know a lot about cyber, what governments should do and what they do actually, and what the industry should do. And in this session, we are going to hear current cyber leaders of the world, and we have here a great opportunity to start with Mr. Rob Joyce, who has a very interesting career of 27 years in the National Security Agency of the United States, and currently he is the cyber coordinator in the White House, a special assistant to the President of the United States. Mr. Joyce, please join me to the stage for discussion about what nations should do and what they do in the cyber arena. Please. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning.
You are quite new, not to the cyber issue, which you know for decades, but in the White House. And my first question to you, the first issue which I would like to discuss with you is what keeps you up at night?
That's a great question. So I would say that the thing that worries me the most is how integrated computers have gotten into our whole lives, the fabric of our societies. At the same time, what we're seeing are increasing threats from the criminals, from nation states, stateless actors. There's all sorts of opportunities for the criminals to just go around and rattle those doorknobs and see what they can do to make money. Opportunistically steal things. That's the ransomware area, and it's growing fast, and it's a huge problem across our businesses and societies. We also have the nation states and the stateless actors who will be more persistent and focused, and they'll come at our government networks, our critical infrastructures. They'll come in and go after our key businesses with that focused exploitation. And they're starting to do that exploitation, but also attack. And they don't seem to have restraint and reasonable boundaries on some of the things they're doing. So that's really worrisome.
So there are too many things to worry about. From our experience, when we have so many, there is something which is the most dangerous and thing that keeps you up at night. Can you point towards a certain thing that currently is in your...
I'm really disturbed by the attacks that are going on in Saudi Arabia right now. So the Shamoon virus, there's destructive malware that's just deleting data, right? And that's beyond the pale. The idea that they can be targeted and it goes into businesses and governments. issue with that is, and we're kind of letting that go, right? There's a huge international outcry. The question is then, what are the responsible actions we can take and make sure that that is not going to come at us, our businesses, our networks, our governments? Because I think, how we respond and think about that in an international sense, I certainly don't want to see that spread into an area where it's threatening us, where it's threatening our friends.
When I was asked several times about what keeps me out at night, I had so many reasons not to sleep well at night, especially, in the Middle East, nobody can sleep well with our very interesting neighborhood. But after thinking a while about it, I thought that what really frightens me is the things which I cannot expect. And I'm talking about, in Israel, it's the Yom Kippur War, or the 9/11. Because the things that we may expect, where we know what to worry about, okay, we have to worry, but maybe we know what to do, and we try at least to do something. But my worst dreams are about the issues which I cannot expect. If something is happening and I do not understand that it's happening, this was, I think, from my point of view, our Yom Kippur War, 73 war, and maybe the 9/11, where everything is on the table, but you simply do not understand the strategic view of what's happening. That's what keeps me up at night.
Yeah, that is a big worry. I look and, along those same lines, I feel you can't protect that which you don't understand. So if we don't understand our networks and what's important in them and what the components are, we don't have the chance to protect them. So things like the Internet of Things trends are a big worry for me. So there's huge amounts of very cheap, inexpensive, but powerful computers going into our critical infrastructure, our sensitive networks, sensitive facilities. And all of those now become points of vulnerability if they aren't well secured. So at home, I built a small device and connected it to my washing machine and dryer. And it allows me to know when my clothes are dry. And so I don't have wrinkled clothes. Is it really, truly important that I have that in my home? No, but it's nice, it helps me. But now I've got to think about patching my washing machine. So who patches their washing machine, right? And that's what I worry about with this Internet of Things trends. Are we going to design them in a way that allows us to know the vulnerabilities that they present? And so when that surface area of exploitable devices and vulnerabilities combines with the belligerent actions we're starting to see on the net explodes, I think that's really dangerous. So I don't sleep much at night either. So you've got a big role in Israel. How is your strategy developing, and where are you taking it?
6 years in office allows me to say that we're trying to look from a more comprehensive point of view. I can point towards 3 important elements in our strategy. The first was that we understood that most of what we see around the world is the strategies of organizations of how to better protect themselves. And most of nations that try to go into the cyber issue, they try to duplicate what they know about conventional threats. So we understood that we need to do something else. We need a new discipline. Cybersecurity is a new discipline. And that's why we put, I think, a new concept of operation of how to act. And this was the first important element of our strategy, meaning to do a lot in order to build our robustness, and then resilience, meaning event-driven, and then to harness our security forces in order to better defend Israel against high-end mega attackers. And this was the first notion for understanding we need a comprehensive new discipline and strategy. The second element was the understanding that you need one and only organization, because Israel is small, to have enough critical mass and the right accountability in order to lead Israel in the cyber domain. And the government adopted our recommendation in February 15. The new Cybersecurity Agency, or authority, the right authority, not agency, was established as the one and only organization in Israel responsible for the defense of the nation from cover to cover, from the doctrines, from instructions, regulations, incident response, and everything which is needed. And this was the second element of our strategy. And currently, just last year, the authority is already working from 2016. I think it's developing, have several hundreds of employees, and tomorrow morning the Director General of the authority is going to speak here. I think that we are doing the right way, the right thing with the authority. And the last but not least step was to understand that with no technology, we'll not be able to really mitigate the threat. So we are working very hard to try and find what technologies should be adopted to the national level, to the state level. I mean, and the example I give that Iron Dome do not protect a specific bank or energy company or some organization. It defends a nation. But when you look at the cyber issue, most of technology and solutions aims towards defending a specific organizations. We are trying to figure out, and we work very hard to make the right R&D efforts in order to find state solutions to better defend our nation. I think that going forward with the authority as the very important organization to lead the nation and find the right technologies is the best thing that we can do. And I believe and I hope that we are on the strategic course of defending our nation in the coming years.
That's outstanding. So I've reviewed your strategy. I think it's really evident how much thought and careful consideration you've put into it. Simply outstanding. I think one of the challenges we have is figuring out the deterrence model in these strategies. How are we going to impose costs on other nations? How are we going to convince them that their attacks either are unable to achieve the outcomes they're seeking, or that the costs of proceeding in those attacks are going to be too great for them to consider executing. And in that space, I think it's the relationships like Israel and the US have that are going to convince others at times that there's a formidable opponent inside us between the capabilities we bring as well as the relationships and the norms we've set that will prevent them from deciding that they need to come at us.
No doubt that the next step will be to better understand not just how to defend, but also how to react, how to retaliate, how to deter. And this is a policy which we and you should adopt. I think that's a real challenge because most of us simply do not understand yet the differences between the cyber arena to other arenas where we know to talk about deterrence, reaction, and retaliation. But this is the next step. Can you tell us what you see, what you have in mind, the United States, in incident response, in deterrence, of how to react to these threats?
We do have a presidential policy directive that organizes us for big incidents. And it incorporates the lessons we've learned from significant cyber events in the past, but it also takes into consideration things we know from other domains like disaster response and counterterrorism. And it really gives us the clarity, the guidance to organize the government, but also connects so the private industry knows what they can expect from the government in terms of an incident, the roles or responsibilities. Like the FBI is responsible to go out and investigate, to find those responsible, bring them to justice. Our Department of Homeland Security deals with the impact of the malicious activity on the targeted entity. and they help with mitigation. And we have things like our Cyber Threat Intelligence Center that goes ahead and synchronizes all of the intel community to bring the intelligence that the government has to bear, often to help that private industry, so that if it's a nation state, the private industry has that benefit of the national defense focus that we can bring. We've put a lot of work into, but we're still not mature in our incident response schema. Evaluating how significant a response is at the beginning of the event has been challenging for us. Sometimes we significantly underestimate how bad something is. Other times I think we get a little overexcited when we see that first indication and we don't know what it is. So we're trying to build some maturity there. But I would say from the White House, our role is to try to stay out of the operations, but make sure it's well coordinated and that all of those capabilities that have the resources are playing position.
I would like to move on, not just for what you're doing now, but to hear from you the future challenges that you see in the cyber domain. Not just what we see, in the coming years, but 5 years from now. How do you see the arena? What are the challenges in front of us?
Boy, that's an interesting question. I think about trying to predict the future. The iPhone I have in my pocket wasn't around 10 years ago. I mean, it has changed our civilization, the way we interact, the way we can get knowledge, the way we can know about where we are and where we're going to be. So I think about how much we've changed in that just 10-year period, and I am motivated to get us better organized with the strategies and concepts to carry us forward for that next 5-year period, because I think if we don't have the kind of bilateral partnerships that we're working on here with you in Israel, if we don't have that next a view into the threats and operate at machine speed, and if we don't have the ways well defined that we impose those costs to do deterrence, we're going to fail. So the good news is I look at the talent you've brought together here. I think about the partnerships we have in government, across our government, and I think about the incredible ideas that are coming up through industry and those public-private partnerships. And I'm pretty confident that if we get all that right, we're going to succeed.
Yes. Otherwise, you cannot find the reasons of how to. Regarding huge global arrangement. No idea, because when we look around and see the GG, tries to do something, yet nothing has happened in the global arrangements of cyber. What is your view regarding this issue?
Well, I think I'll hold off and I'll leave that to Mr. Bossert in his talk, because as we look, our time is coming to an end.
Yes.
But I think it's really important that we as nations have a vision of where we are and where we need to go. And I think you'll hear some strong talk from him about just what our visions are.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dr. Matania.